I just couldn't give it up. I wasn't making money, but I was enjoying it so much that it didn't matter about the money because I had made plenty of money and was miserable. So I
Mm.
said, this is what I need to be doing. So as I kept doing it, opportunities kept coming, resources kept coming. So I kind of learned things the hard way, but they were valuable lessons and taught me, patience for one, because, a young person, I think I was like 25 or something. And you want it right then. I'm in business.
Right.
I want money right now.
Totally.
I want big fat bank account, but that wasn't happening. But I was still feeling fulfilled.
Dr. Wendy Labat, you're an award-winning entrepreneur, business strategist, speaker, two-time best-selling author,
No, three-time
three-time
bestseller.
best-selling.
Yeah,
Come
three
on, there we
times.
go.
About to be
Three
four if
times.
everybody buys my book coming up. So say
Abs-
four time because we're going to make this one a bestseller.
Absolutely. Four-time best-selling author, much, much more. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. I love to go back with my shows. Like, where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Well, for me, I grew up in Chicago
Okay.
and it was pretty good. I mean, I didn't have the perfect life, but, my mom and dad separated when I was like 10. But my mom, raised us and, we still had a relationship with my dad, but, he was in New York and we were in Chicago. But she always taught us that we can be whoever we want to be, just be the best. She always taught us that, people are going to talk about you, but give them something to talk about. So,
Yeah.
she never, she helped build our self-esteem, especially as, young girls. Back then it was old school. And, not that women were staying at home. I was a little beyond that phase, but,
Sure.
you know, she, just motivate us to do whatever we want. I wanted to be a medical doctor. And even though I'm a doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, but still I strive toward that.
Yeah.
And we work, we learn responsibility, how to manage money, and she taught us all that. So we were fortunate, coming up.
Oh, that's awesome. And she was definitely probably the motivation for you to become an entrepreneur then in the long run.
Well, not really, because she
Okay.
was old school. And,
Okay.
matter of fact, when I started my business, her back then, that generation was about go to college, get a good job, work 30
Mm.
years, retire, and you'll be set.
Yeah.
But, by the time I came up and got to that point, it wasn't about that. I went to college. I didn't get accepted to medical school, but I went to graduate school and I started out, working on my MBA in healthcare administration.
Yeah.
And when I was in school, it was, teaching us that hospitals, because they were nonprofit, but by the time I got my degree, hospitals were for profit. They were advertising. It's like, that's not what I learned,
Right.
So she didn't really teach us that. The spirit kind of led me that to the entrepreneurial journey. I had a cousin that, was an entrepreneur older, he was my mom's age, but every Christmas, he would, get up one of those little Polaroid cameras. I don't know if you are old enough to remember
Oh
that.
yeah, totally.
And he would, he would rent a little spot at the local Walgreens, and we would go out there. He had a guy that would sign up for, to be suit up as Santa Claus.
Okay.
So he would say, okay, you're gonna be my helper. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be your helper. So I used to be out there saying, okay, we got Santa Claus pictures with Santa Claus, and come on over, get pictures with Santa Claus, and $1.50 with them, dollar and a half without. And it was so
Okay.
funny because that's what he would tell me to say. And people would say, how much with them? I said, $1.50. He said, how much without them? $1.50. They said, okay, I want it with them, like they didn't really realize the
Right.
difference. It was the same price.
Totally.
And, I just learned from there. And then he had gotten, back when Martin Luther King had done the I Had a Dream speech.
Yeah.
I Have a Dream speech. He ordered these bumper stickers and we were selling them, and that's how I really got my entrepreneurial, I guess, background from him,
Yeah.
because he was back then it was called hustling, but the bottom line it was he was an entrepreneur.
Sure.
But yeah, and then when I went to college, I used to do hair and I used to type term papers and do all kind of little things to make extra money.
Okay. And then, I mean, like you opened this office equipment store over 37 years ago, no
Yeah.
experience, limited financial resources. And then you end up doing tax preparation service and you adding that in insurance products as well. I mean, you've seen a lot of ups and downs through businesses and not obviously no business is ever perfect, but what was it that drove you to be successful in those businesses? And how did you deal with those failures that came along the way?
Well, it was, I'm gonna say I'm a spiritual person. It was the
Mm,
spirit because I never thought about going into business. But when I
right.
started that company, the spirit, kind of guided me to the opportunity because I worked for another company that was a small business. It was entrepreneurial, I mean, office equipment company, but they were bankrupt and that couldn't meet payroll. So it's
Oh,
like,
wow.
what? I can't, I need my money.
Yep.
So one of the guys there said, "Look, if you guys come with me, I'll meet this payroll and then we'll start our own company." So I said, "Okay, cool." But then he ended up, having issues with his wife. And I had just come from, I just moved from Italy to Georgia. And like I said, I was new to the area. I didn't know anybody. And I'm like, I can't go to Florida. I don't know anybody in Florida.
Yeah.
And I, said, well, look, I started gathering all the client information, the vendor information. And I talked to my dad and said, look, we got this opportunity, to start our own thing. So he was, he agreed and, we kind of partnered up for that. But, he wasn't a businessman. He was a teacher. And then, we had different ideals. So I, had to venture out on my own, like I said, with
Sure.
no money, no experience. But I had I've been getting out, networking. I made some sales, but I just couldn't give it up. I wasn't making money, but I was enjoying it so much that it didn't matter about the money because I had made plenty of money and was miserable. So I
Mm,
said, this is what I need to be doing. So as I kept doing it, opportunities kept coming, resources kept coming. So I kind of learned things the hard way, but they were valuable lessons and taught me, patience for one, because, a young person, I think I was like 25 or something. And you want it right then. I'm in business.
right.
I want money right now.
Totally.
I want big fat bank account, but that wasn't happening. But I was still feeling fulfilled. But eventually I learned I got a good mentor that really guided me along the way and kind of, pulled me in some circles, but I learned how to work my own circles because my
Sure.
mentor wasn't pulling me in like he could have or should have, I thought, as a mentor. But I ended up saying, hey, if you're not going to get me in there, I'll get in myself. You open up
Yep.
the door, else I'll break it down myself. And that's what
Right.
I ended up doing, and it ended up working out pretty good.
Come
I'm
on.
still
That's
here
awesome.
all these years later.
Man, that's so amazing. I love that. And then as I was doing research on you in 2017, you got diagnosed with breast cancer, having multiple surgeries, CAT scans, MRIs, ultrasounds, mammograms, much more. I can't imagine getting that news. My mom actually had breast cancer as well. And you're such a warrior. And financially, though, going through that is not cheap at all. Um,
It's not.
I'm so glad that you've been able to conquer that, though. That's amazing. But mentally, how do you get through that news and how do you go through all that, get processed through mentally? And you talk about Holy Spirit, and I'm a believer as well. And that's probably where that is. But I'd love to hear your take on just the mental aspect of that.
Well, it was, I guess when I had been, doing my annual mammograms, and then it got to where I was doing them every 6 months because they kept seeing calcification.
Yeah.
But spirit had calmness in me, so I was like, okay, everything's cool. But this one particular time, the radiologist said, look, we need to do a biopsy. So I'm like, okay, whatever it is. As soon as he said that, I said, if it is something, we're gonna nip it in the bud. If it's not anything, praise the Lord. So
Hmm.
they did the biopsy and he said the results will be back in 3 days. So 3 days later, I called the radiology department and they told me I had to get the results from the ordering physician, which was a new gynecologist for me. My first time really going to her.
Yeah.
So I called her office and said, look, the radiologist department said that you all have my results and I need to get them. So the receptionist said, well, okay, you need to make an appointment. I said, well, okay, let's make an appointment. And then she put me on hold. And then the office manager got on the line and said, well, she doesn't make appointments to discuss results. I was like, what? I said, well, how am I going to get my results?
Right.
And she
Yeah.
said, well, you can come by and pick them up. I said, okay, I'm on my way. Have them ready. I'll be there in 5 minutes. So I go to the office. pick up my results, and they hand me this sealed envelope, and I take it, I go out to my car, open it up, and I see carcinoma, which I know means cancer, So
Right.
I'm like, okay, Lord, but I was more pissed, excuse my language, because here I got cancer and they won't even give me the time of day to tell me I have it. I had to
Yeah.
figure it out for myself, or read it for myself. And then I was like, Lord, what do I do from here? Because I'm ready to deal with this, but what's the next step?
Right.
So I had a friend and a client who was a conqueror, breast cancer conqueror. So I called her, and then she gave me her oncologist number, and I called them. But because I had switched insurances, they didn't cover my insurance didn't cover them. So they told me to, hold on, I'm going to make a few calls. Well, first they told me send the results. I sent the results over, and then they said, I'm going to make a few calls and I'll call you right back. And sure enough, they called me right back and gave me the number to, uh, Emory Winship Cancer Institute, which is, a big one here in Atlanta,
Yeah.
and said the lady's waiting on your call. So sure enough, I called, and the lady was waiting on my call. She scheduled an appointment with an oncologist like for 3 days later. And I was like, okay, Lord, but I was still steaming from this daggone doctor. And I guess that's what kind of helped me deal with the news.
Yeah.
But I called my husband and told him, and I was calm because when I saw it, I had a sense of peace come over me. So I wasn't even frightened. I was like, okay, Lord,
Mhm.
guide my steps and, light the way. And he did. And like I said, the fact that I had that sense of peace, I knew it wasn't a death sentence. So I knew whatever I was going to deal with, it wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I was going to still be around. So, and, my family, they were good and supportive, and they were kind of waiting to see how I handled it, to see how they were going to handle it.
Sure.
And, I was positive because I'm a positive person. And I knew this was just, another journey that I have to go through. I hadn't been through one quite as difficult, but, hey,
Yeah.
it only makes you stronger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to touch base and kind of shift transitions here to your global streaming show that's going to be dropping soon. It's the Financial Cures with Dr. Wendy. It's going to be airing here very soon. This sounds amazing. What can folks expect out of this show?
Well, it's awesome. I mean, we did our filming. I think we filmed the first season last week. We finished,
Okay.
and I was surprised. This is new to me, but we're talking about the first episode is called Faith, Focus, and Financial Health, and it talks about how your faith. A lot of people say they have faith, and they want all this, money and success and all that, but they don't do anything.
Mhm.
So my guest is my pastor, and I've been, a member of the church for 10 years, and it's awesome. They
Yeah.
don't, nickel and dime you. But anyway, he talked about, your faith, without works is dead. So you have your faith, but you got to focus, which means you have to have discipline, which means you have to, take action to optimize your financial health. So it was just him, really good episode, just
Mhm.
talking about how all that comes into play. And then the next episode is your financial health properly protected? That's my story. I was properly protected. So, we have a gentleman who's the CEO of a company that provides that kind of coverage, not only for, proper protection, but also as, a source of income, because a lot of people need that multiple stream of income or additional stream, and they don't have it. And this is a way to kind of help people protect themselves and, be rewarded with money.
Right.
So, and then the third episode was about, um, did you get your money prescription filled? And it was
Mm.
about grants and the benefits of having a nonprofit. And the guest speaker was she's an expert. In matter of fact, she did my nonprofit, the 501c3, because that's a whole different thing that, I paid her to do instead of trying it myself. But she writes grants, gets millions of dollars in grants for her clients, and just showing you, that you don't want to, count only on grants, but you don't want to leave that money on the table either. So,
Right.
talked about the differences between the 501c3. Now, the next episode, am I going too far
No, you're
into
good.
it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
love it. Yeah, bring it on.
Is entitled, Do You Need Occupational Therapy? And this was a gentleman that has a training and an employment agency. So with all the new, infrastructure that's about to take place, people need to be retrained and, get into the new mode with, COVID, everything's changing and people need to adjust to that. So his company provides those kind of services. And then the next one was credit called,
Okay.
What is your credit diagnosis? And that's a big one because everybody has issues or needs to understand how the credit system works.
Totally.
And this guy is an expert. I don't think he's ever had less than an 830. I said, have you ever had less than an 850 credit score, which is the highest? He said, I've had 837. It's like, oh, hoop-de-doo,
That's
But
awesome.
he talks about it. I mean, it's really informative. Talks about, it's not kind of the history of how credit, came into play and, the different factors that you can do to help boost your credit and what affects your credit. So that was really good. And the final episode is, are you sowing seeds into the lives of others to reap a great harvest? And I sit on the board of this organization is Zion Hill Community Development Corporation, and we provide housing for the homeless. And the executive director was there talking about, what she does in the organization and the project that we're about to launch, which is like a $24 million project. But she's so good.
Yeah.
And then that's how we wrapped it up. So
Okay.
it kind of, went from, the faith to the, helping and all in between. So it's pretty good.
I love it. That's awesome. And being a Christian and Christ follower myself, sometimes money can be a tricky topic when it comes to faith. How much does that faith play into your finances? And would be interested to hear, that pastor's perspective. And obviously don't reveal too much because people need to go watch the show. But how does your faith play into your finances at all?
Well, you have to make faith the priority.
Yeah.
Finances or money can't be the priority. That's just the end result of you having the faith and taking the action. Because if you make money the priority, you may get the money, but it's not going to last. And it's really, you're not going to get the happiness, the whole package that goes with it.
Yep.
So faith is very important because, like I said, faith is, the key. You got to have faith, but you have to take action. You have to know that God has a plan for you and that it's going to happen whether you see it or not. And I think Martin Luther King says, you got to be willing, or faith is, taking the first step without seeing the whole staircase or something like that. So that's the kind of thing, take the step and you don't have to see what's at the top of the staircase. Just keep moving and you'll get there eventually.
I love it. Absolutely. And you've got another book coming out that it's the part of the Financial Cures book series there, and it's called Optimize Your Financial Health. It's going to be dropping very soon. Congratulations.
Can you see that? Yeah, and it looks similar to the other book, just a different color, different, because it's a series sort of like the, dummies for whatever, like PC, for dummies. It's the same kind of philosophy, but it'll be dropping and it's just more, in depth about, optimizing your financial health. And so far, and then, I was surprised because my guests on the show, they all have a copy and matter of fact, few of them referenced it and how, especially my pastor and the credit expert, were just referencing, how my techniques and the things I was talking about in the book, are just confirmation that I'm talking about the right thing. So I felt really good to get their, affirmations and, about it. So I'm excited.
I am too. I mean, I read the first one here, or this one here, Diagnose Your Financial Health. I think I highlighted every page in here. It's so good. There's so much good stuff in there. Definitely some good tips for me to make some, tweaks on our finances as well. And kind of speaking of that, a scenario question. I've got a friend who has $100,000 sitting in their account right now. It was an inheritance. What is the smartest thing for them to do with that money to optimize that?
Well, the smartest thing is to protect them and their family with what I call as an index universal life. And what that is, it's an insurance policy, but it has three buckets of benefits. It has the traditional death benefit, it has a living benefit in case you get sick with heart attack, stroke, or cancer. You can withdraw up to 90% of the face value or the death benefit. And then it has not a cash accumulation, a market that's indexed to the market. So you can overfund it. And whatever the market does, it has indexing is having a ceiling and a floor. So let's say the ceiling is 12% and the market does 15%. You're only going to get paid that 12%, but it has a floor. And most of the products that I write people, it has a 1/4% floor, and some of them have zero, but I do the 1/4%. So if the market crashes, you're still going to get a 1/4% on your, investment. And where everybody else in the market, it crashes like it did, in the .com and the real estate and mortgage industries, then those folks, they have to come up from the basement. But when you got that floor, you're coming up. When the market picks back up, you're coming back up. So I usually write my clients with, and I would suggest your friend get an index universal life policy for him and his family, and then a companion term policy with living benefits, because like I said, the living benefits allows you to take 90% of that death benefit and still leave 10%. But that way you can overfund your IUL, not touch it in case something happens. And in case something does happen, you can pull from that term policy. Because term, it doesn't have cash value that's going to build like the IUL. And next thing the kids, I don't know how old the kids are, but if they get to be college age, they'll have money to go to college. And if they want to get married, they'll have, especially the girls, pay for this expensive wedding,
Right. Yeah.
buy a house or whatever. And we call that the $1 Million Baby program, because, the younger you start, the less expensive the insurance is, which means you can put more into the overfunding for the growth. So that's what I suggest, because it's a win-win. There's a no risk, and you got a good return, because bank accounts are paying what 0.2% interest,
Something like
and
that, yeah.
you don't want to let it sit there. But then the market is doing good, but it's fluctuating, so you don't want to take the risk of any kind of loss. So
Right.
that way, that's what I suggest.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing for sure. This has been such an awesome call, Dr. Wendy. What is the best place for folks, or where is the best place for folks to connect and follow you?
Okay, well, a couple places. Of course, my website, thefinancialcures.com, that has, matter of fact, we're adding with all the stuff that we're doing, that's going to be like our big umbrella, with all the information about the books, the podcasts, whatever, the classes and everything that we offer. But I also have a Financial Cures Facebook group, which I, provide daily inspiration and information. So I've got, a pretty good group, and, people, and I also post in other groups, but, people appreciate just getting that daily inspiration to get their day started.
Yeah.
And then I'm on Instagram, dr.wendy.labat, Labat. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Wendy Labat. So any of those, it would be a good way.
Oh, Dr. Wendy, this is such an amazing call. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your tips. And definitely I'm taking notes, and I'm going to be reviewing this multiple times to make sure I get on the right track there. Thank you again for your time. Such an honor to have you on. I really appreciate it.
But thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed.
What's going on? Thank you so much for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Hey, I just wanted to do a quick introduction. If you've not seen my show, or you don't know the services that I offer, I wanted to drop them to you right now. One, I do voiceover work. So if you're looking for a voiceover person to cover your motivational videos, or maybe it's Kickstarter videos or whatever it is, let me know. I'm more than happy to help you out there. I also work with brands on brand and product videos. So they'll send me their products to do reviews or box openings. Let me know. I'd love to work with you on your product as well and help you get that product out there. I also love to be able to share my story. So if I can make an impact on one person at your next speaking engagement, let me know. I love to talk about my story. I love to talk about how our past does not define our future. and morning routines and being consistent, how to be around those successful people that are just going to lift you up. Let's chat about having me speak at your next event. Let's make it happen. Again, thank you so much for checking out this show. Check out ericallenmedia.com. Really appreciate your time. Have an awesome day.